What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? 49 coming out, another community showcast for the OUSA Total League Season 2. Just loading into game number 1 of Horsemen of the Ruckus up against Weed Unit. Joining me as my co-caster will be Mule, mid player for 5IP. How are you doing there, Mule? Oh, looks like he actually hasn't loaded in yet. And so Weed Unit, there's a bunch of, I think there are a bunch of first years, apart from 5200, who used to be the mid player from Bambi Rising. Horsemen of the Ruckus, their roster is exactly the same, so the same players as last semester. And they were the runners-up in the ODL1. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform. Mule, looks like you've just loaded in. How are you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, it's fucking cold out tonight, but...
Yeah, it's been raining and they said it's almost snowing, but maybe tomorrow.
yeah, that would always be good. So we're waiting on Jamie, who of course plays on the Mac for whatever god knows reason, so he always takes a while to load in. But should be an interesting series. This is the first series of the ODL2 so far. This is Group 2, so just like the ODL1, Group 2 looks like to be the stack of death. Since we're seeing a lot of teams with a high average MMR. Of course, Blink, however, happens to be in Group 1 again this time around. So they're going to be left against a whole bunch of untested teams. We actually haven't seen many of the teams in Group 1. So Group 2, it's a lot of tried and true teams, with the exception of Weed Unit. They've got 5200, but other than that, I haven't actually seen any of the other players perform before. It actually looks like Jamie still is loading. Oh, there we go. He's finally loaded in.
Just in time.
Mac Master Race, eh? So I've been hearing rumors that DumbleD might actually be replacing Kin.killa in the mid role, so that could be quite interesting if they decide to switch it up. Because DumbleD is one of the best 1v1 players in Dunedin at the moment. And so first band's coming up for both. Oh, go on.
Playing quite a lot with DumbleD. Yeah, it's quite good.
And so we've got Invoker first band coming up from Weed Unit. Very unconventional first band, especially with all the recent nerfs. So Cold Snap no longer does 30 damage at level 1. It now does 7 damage times the level of Quas. And since you usually don't go for more than 3 points in Quas, unless you're going for the Exalt build, means Cold Snap doesn't have that lane controlling ability anymore. Faceless Void, second band, very standard band just because of how powerful he is as an offlane hero, with the Chronosphere to help set up the rest of his team. And Lycanthrope and Doombringer, so two very powerful bands coming out from HOR. Lycanthrope, the reason why he's banned out is if you do lose any fight against him, he's got such an amazing pushing power that you pretty much lose the game. He could take a set of racks. If you leave him alone, he would push away your towers, and he comes online a lot faster than any other carry. But looks like they're going for Skywrath, Mage, and Brewmaster. This is a very powerful combo because the Brewmaster's Pandarean split. The Boulder Toss gives Skywrath Mage enough time to be able to let off the Mystic Flare. Skywrath Mage is currently the most powerful support hero in the game, alongside Shadow Shaman, just because he's incredibly powerful at all stages of the game, especially with the Ancient Seal nerf. So 30% magic damage at level 1 and 3-second silence, and that concussive shot helps set up for the rest of his teammates with a huge range. And especially since Skywrath Mage is actually the fastest support hero in the game with 325 movement speed. Not only is he going to be able to get up in your face and blow you up with his high range spells, he's also very hard to be able to pin him down since he has such a huge engagement range. And so we've got Titan's being banned out as the third ban, so either team, they're not a big fan of the huge wombo combo teamfight heroes. They're banning out the Death Prophet, one of Kin.killa's favourite heroes. What are your thoughts so far on the bans coming out from both teams, Mule?
Yeah, it's pretty standard. It's a Tidehunter, Doombringer, Lycan, just really strong, and Void as well. In the
yeah,
tier.
Void Skywrath is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I
That
quite like the Pandarean Brewmaster pick as well. So.
Yeah, so most likely will be a mid Brewmaster. You can run Brewmaster in a tri lane, but the disadvantage of that is if you run Brewmaster as your one position farmer, you have to end the game in the first 35 minutes, or you have to take Rex and try to put yourself in a favourable position.
Yeah, you have to rush Blink Dagger if you're going same farm. Just really rush it and just roam everywhere every time your ult is on cooldown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I do with the Pandarean Brewmaster.
So Clockwork, most likely going to be UGTFO, the offlane player over on that Clockwork, one of his better heroes. Clockwork Goblin, a hero that hasn't been seeing too much action so far in the International. I mean, Bone 7 did use him to great effect to knock out Na'Vi, but Clockwork Goblin, very powerful offlane hero because he's got a guaranteed, especially if you're going to be on the Radiant side, which Horsemen of the Ruckus are, you have a guaranteed level 2 with the cog block on the creeps, as well as the fact that the Radiant generally has the easier offlane. And once you hit level 6, if you catch a single hero out on their own, with the maxed out battery assault and the hook shot to trap him with the cogs, it's a free kill. And so Clockwork Goblin comes online very quickly. He doesn't need much, or I mean, just with boots he could cause a lot of damage. And if the support hero, one of the support heroes is pulling and the other support hero is left to his own, if Clockwork catches him out, he could kill them with the battery assault. It's a very powerful offlane hero in that 1v3 situation. Or in the 1v1, you could use the cogs to mana burn the enemy offlaner and to prevent them from being able to achieve much. Very powerful hero in all stages of the game. Sand King being banned out, so they don't want to deal with the Shadow Shaman Sand King duo. Although that's a bit of a greedy duo, just because both support the Shadow Shaman and the Sand King need a lot of golden experience to be really effective. And Sand King in the early stages of the game, unless he starts off with boots first, probably will be spending a lot of the time pulling and clearing out jungle creeps before he's able to find his farm. And so that means that you just have the Shadow Shaman left to his own devices. But that being said, if they are able to get the early farm and early experience, Shadow Shaman and Sand King can do a lot of work at all stages of the game. Shadow Shaman with the Mass Serpent Wards can push down towers, Sand King with the Epicenter can single-handedly win you fights. And with the Clockwork Goblin to trap him in cogs as well, it's a very nasty combination currently with the Shadow Shaman. So third pick coming up from Weed Unit, it looks like they have most likely going to be a Brewmaster mid, so they could choose to pick up their offlaner now, just because it knows the Clockwork, but instead they're going with a safer line pickup. And so line Skywrath Mage, I don't think I've actually seen that combo before. But that being said, it's very effective because you've got the huge engagement range from the concussive shot, just because it has such a massive range that you can cast it from. So long as you have vision, you can throw it out from fog, hit them with that 40% snare. Line runs up with the impale or with the hex. Since hex is 2.5 seconds at level 1, it's hands down the best level 1 stun in the game. Gives you a lot of work, especially if they decide to have that tri-lane Brewmaster. At level 1, huge amount of killing power coming up from the three of those heroes. What are your thoughts on line pickups, Emil?
I'm really scared of the Ancient Seal and the Finger of Death. It's just pure damage.
Yeah, 45% damage amp with that finger. That's goodbye any of those heroes. They're gone for a Razor, so a lot of TI picks coming out from both teams.
Yeah, the Razor is really strong in every lineup. It's just so hard to deal with, and in the mid lane, there's no damage because he just dead links you.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of players have been considering is they've gone for Viper Weed Unit. It was led by Kaio's that mid player. It looks like he's decided to renounce his vows. He said to me that he would never draft Viper or play Viper because he hates that hero. Just because in-house I always played against him. Viper probably the best 1v1 hero in the game. Although against the Razor, it's a pretty 50-50 matchup. If the Razor's able to get a good enough static link in the first wave, you can actually control the lane against the Viper, but otherwise Viper should be able to out-deny the Razor if he's able to maintain his distance, and with Corrosive Skin, very difficult for Razor to be able to go for a kill attempt. I mean, what are your thoughts on the Viper v Razor matchup, since you're the mid player for 5IP? I'm sure you've faced this matchup before.
Yeah, I think Razor's okay. Yeah, I think it's like about 50-50. If you can steady link him like if you max your steady link, I think he would just have no damage, even Toxin. Yeah. Not going to do anything, so I reckon just he go boots.
Yeah.
And just steady link him everywhere he goes.
I mean, that being said, Viper and Razor, they both play a very similar role. They're a tanky hero that wants to draw fire, so I like to call them retard magnets, because that's basically what they do. You want to build mech as soon as possible on those two heroes, run in, build maybe an Aghanim Scepter for the Razor for the pushing power.
Get the same items.
Yeah, you even go for the same items. You just run up, get in their face, force them to attack you.
Exactly the same items.
Yeah, I mean, Viper, BKB, not so much. Razor, it's a bit more core, but more or less the same core items. You want mech, you want Aghanim Scepter.
Yeah.
And you just get up in their face and just be a nuisance.
There's going to be a lot of pushing lineup, yeah.
And Disruptor being picked up by Horsemen and Ruckus, they did not pick that hero at all the entirety of the ODL1, so they must have been practicing to be able to ensure that they could pull this combination off. Shadow Shaman and Disruptor, very, very powerful support duo, since you've got the Shadow Shaman that can initiate the Shackle while Disruptor sets up the kinetic field behind them. Thunderstrike can provide vision, which helps alleviate one of Shadow Shaman's biggest weaknesses, which is being able to juke him since he's so slow. And then you've got the Glimpse to bring them back if they happen to live. And in terms of late game teamfight, if you could catch two heroes out the Static Storm, you've already won. If you run up, catch the Skywrath Mage in the line, then you've pretty much won that fight. Since those two heroes, they're silenced, they're just giant range creeps. Shadow Shaman can then drop the Mass Serpent Wards on top of the kinetic field, to trap him in. And then you've got the Clockwork Cogs on top of that. So you've got two great ways to be able to lock people in position for the Mass Serpent Wards to do work, and for Razor to be able to do his thing. And so we've got a Slug and an Undying ban coming out. Undying, very clever ban coming out from them. They can decide to run maybe Brewmaster in the offlane and decide to run a tri-lane, or even an offlane Undying. And the reason why Undying is so powerful is the support duo, the Shadow Shaman and the Disruptor, they don't do enough damage to be able to kill the Undying. And if Undying is able to get that Tombstone off, if he's able to get 1 or 2 stacks of decay, he could turn and actually kill all 3 heroes in the tri-lane and not even bat an eye. But instead, they're going for the Bristle back, so they're recognizing the fact that they've got a soft support duo, the Shadow Shaman and the Disruptor, Both of these heroes are what you like to call setup heroes. The Shadow Shaman, he does do a lot of damage with the Ether Shock, but he needs a lot of points for that to be effective. And so you usually pick Shadow Shaman in the tri-lane for the Shackles as well as the Hex to be able to lock people in position. Same thing for the Disruptor. Thunderstrike does a lot of sustained damage, but it doesn't give you a huge burst of damage to kill people outright. And so Disruptor's usually there for the Glimpse and the Kinetic Field to be able to control people's position and to be able to pull them back. And so they have to pick a very aggressive tri-lane farmer to work in conjunction with these two heroes. Unless they're deciding to do a Razor tri-lane, in which case they want to pick up a very powerful mid-lane hero. So for instance, Luna would work very well with this tri-lane with the Shadow Shaman and the Disruptor, because you've got 3 ranged heroes that benefit from the Lunar Blessing. You've got the Lucent Beam to be able to provide that initial mini-stun for Shadow Shaman to run up, to shackle them. Then you've got the Kinetic Field, and the Glimpse also provides all the time on target for the Lunans to be able to bring them down. Or they could even decide to go for Wraith King would be a option, but with the line pickup, probably not so likely, just because you've got the mana drain coming up from them. But you definitely have to pick up an aggressive farming hero. So they've gone for the Ember Spirit. Do you reckon it's going to be a tri-lane Ember, or do you reckon it's going to be an off-lane? Sorry, the mid Ember Spirit.
I think it's going to be mid Ember Spirit safe lane. Not against Viper though.
Yeah, because Viper single-handedly just destroys the Ember Spirit because of the Nether Toxin as well as the Orb. Especially with the new trend with the build for that you completely skip Slaughter Fist until later on. You go for 2 points up in the Searing Chains and then you want to max out your Flame Guard. And so just going to quickly introduce the players from both teams. Over on Weed Unit, DJ Ganja, over on the Brewmaster. Pastor J on the line, 5200, mid player going to be over on that Viper. Sky, their captain, the off-lane Bristleback. And 2F over on that Skywrath Mage. Looks like they're grouping up as 5, going to rotate into the jungle to be able to place their wards in, as well as see if they can catch a hero off guard. Rizza, Gizza, and the Kin.killa, captain for Horsemen of the Ruckus. Usually their mid player. Looks like he's actually playing a safe lane farmer over on the Ember Spirit. Method Man, Jamie, my flatmate, who's actually next door to me right now, over on the Disruptor. Smoker to seat up on him, so they're planning to play very aggressive. Gat over on the Shadow Shaman, and DumbleD looks like he's going to be that mid lane Razor. Hasn't actually bought out all his items yet. It's been pulled 2 tangos. So a lot of regen, a lot of sustain to deal with that Viper. And UGTFO going to be that offlane Clockwork. And the aggressive positioning coming out from Weed Unit, they're expecting one of the heroes from the Horsemen of the Ruckus to be out on the zone, maybe going in for a ward, and they can try to pick him off. Weren't able to do so, but they do have a very unconventional safety ward being placed there. Unfortunately, doesn't block the pull cap. Bit of an interesting ward to place. You usually, if you are going for an unconventional safety ward for the offlane, you want to place it maybe there, or there. Since the pub ward of placing it there, it's too greedy, it gives you too much, so it's very easily dewarded, just because it's very obvious to tell what it's going for. You don't want to go for the magic bush for that same reason. And so usually for the safety ward, you want to place it somewhere that they're not going to try to deward it. Method Man already smoked up, so they're trying to play very aggressive. The smoke's about to wear off, so bit of a questionable play coming up from him. Haste Room picked up by Shadow Shaman, he's also smoked up. He could actually... Yeah, if they want the first ward, they could try going mid. DumbleD, no boots, actually chose to go for a Ring of Basilius. Gets a link off over in 5200.
Yeah, you don't need Ring of Basilius to spam the steady link.
Yeah. Interesting build coming up from DumbleD. I mean, while he's an excellent 1v1 player, he does tend to go for a very unconventional item and skill builds. And it looks like Skywrath Mage is babysitting the Viper. How often do you see this happening? Viper is a hero that's designed to win 1v1s. And so Skywrath is there just to provide extra pressure to make sure that DumbleD is shut down. So good recognition coming out from Weed Unit, but he's already rotating over to the top lane. And we see UGTFO. Creep Equilibrium is absolutely perfect for him. You want to keep it just outside of tower range. So ideally there, but that also works as well. So that gives you...
Just blocked.
Oh, so that was the attempt of it. Okay, so that blocks out the camp, yeah.
Yeah.
DJ Ganja looks like somebody that tri-lane Brewmaster. He's doing a lot of work. Harassing back the Clockwork. The Clockwork's picked up level 2 just off the bat. Whereas over for the Dire offlaner, Sky.
Really fast level for Clockwork.
Yeah. He looks like he will be picking up level 2 unless those creeps are denied. Dire offlane usually has a much more difficult time, so the Radiant offlane, you can always pull the hard camp there. And UGTFO going for a bit of an unconventional safety ward of his own. Ember Spirit off to a good start. Probably won't be wanting to go for a Midas, which is usually the standard item for the tri-lane farmer, because you want to make up the EXP that you lose. So probably going to be rushing towards Phase Drum into the Battle Fury. And so far he's going towards the conventional Ember Spirit build. You want 2 points up in the Searing Chains to provide that lockdown, especially since it's only 1 second at level 1. Then you want to max out the Flame Guard. Bit surprised with the Ember Spirit pickup, considering he's against the Bristleback offlane. You can't really leave the Ember Spirit alone against the Bristleback, just because the Quill Spray's physical damage. Ember Spirit has very low armor, and with the point up in the Nasal Goo, can actually do a lot of damage. And so far he's going towards the conventional Ember Spirit build. You want 2 points up in the Searing Chains to provide that lockdown, especially since it's only 1 second at level 1. Then you want to max out the Flame Guard. Bit surprised with the Ember Spirit pickup, considering he's against the Bristleback offlane. You can't really leave the Ember Spirit alone against the Bristleback, just because the Quill Spray's physical damage. And with the point up in the Nasal Goo, can actually do a lot of damage. In terms of CS so far, looks like the Razor and the Viper are tied. 6-2 for both players. Keep in mind, DumbleD was actually harassed out a bit with the Skywrath Mage, providing a bit of pressure in the early stages to ensure that 5200 was able to get level 2. So fairly standard build. He's already got boots up, so he's anticipating the static link coming out from Razor. And with that point up in the corrosive skin, it's going to be very difficult for Razor to trade harass hits on him. In the bottom lane, Method Man chose to skill up Thunderstrike at 1. So fairly standard build coming out from the Disruptors. You do occasionally opt to go for Kinetic Field at 1. If you're going for field.
Trading.
Yeah, 5200. It actually took a long duration link, but was able to do a lot of damage to the Razor. So it's a pretty 50-50 matchup for both of them. 5200, trying to last hit. Very, very sad with that 56 damage being leached out by the Razor. So in this particular matchup, you want to max out the static link.
TFO going top lane.
And that's actually going to be first blood. Pass to Jay.
First blood. There you go.
Yeah, excellent play coming out from UGTFO. 2FI, looks like he was too far but towards the creep wave. Caught him out on his own, the battery assault. Just able to clean up. Since the thing that you have to keep in mind when you're playing that Clockwork Goblin, or when you're playing against him, is some hero, if the cast point of a hero is above 0.5, he will actually prevent you from being able to cast any of your abilities. So for instance, Ogre Magi before the recent change would change his cast point to 0.45. If he was caught in the battery assault, couldn't do anything. Earthshaker and Omni Knight, another two heroes that can't do anything if they're caught out by the battery assault. One of the reasons why Clockwork is so powerful. Razor choosing not to go for boots, actually opted for headdress. And Viper looks like he's going to be doing the same, but he's got boots first, so he's going to use that to control the lane.
Ooh.
And that's a static link that was completely wasted.
Yeah, it didn't even get off the static link just now.
Yeah. Bit surprised that DumbleD chose to not go for boots first, since Razor is a very fast hero compared to the Viper, who's incredibly slow. So Viper has to get boots just so he doesn't get linked. If Razor gets boots as well, he nullifies the advantage. D-warding happening as past to Jay, getting rid of the safety ward, which was also blocking out the hard cap. It's a little bit of golden. UGTFO can actually choose to go in for a kill attempt again if he wants to, but he knows that Skywrath Mage is hanging around. And Brewmaster's off to a great start. 20 CS, with 2 more denies than Kin.killa over in the Ember Spirit. And with that very early magic stick pickup, he knows that if he's left alone against the Bristleback, he's able to hold his own with the stick charges that are coming out. But so far the two supports for Horsemen and Ruckus, level 2 and level 3 respectively, up against level 2 and level 2 Skywrath Mage, so they are getting a lot more EXP over for the Radiant supports compared to the Die. But this mid lane, DumbleD is actually losing quite decisively now. 4 more last hits and 2 more denies over in 5200. But that being said, Razor does provide a lot more early AoE presence than the Vipers. Since Viper has no kind of AoE presence at all, unless the enemy team catches him with the corrosive skin. And we've got smoke rotation coming out with Skywrath Mage and Line. This is another drawback of the Shadow Shaman and the Disruptor support duos. They can't really support gank, since you've got the lockdown coming out from the Shackle, but you just don't have the damage follow-up coming out from the Disruptor, so unless if the mid player is able to deal a lot of damage. It looks like Nether Toxin, Viper Strike has been used, Concussive Shot lands as well, there's the Impale, and DumbleD should be taking a fall. He's hexed up just for good measure.
Nice.
Yeah, good, well-timed smoke gank coming out from the boys from Weed Unit. And while they are untested, they definitely are off to a pretty good start. They did unfortunately feed First Blood to UGTFO, so he's almost level 6. But they're off to a fairly effective start. Brewmaster actually chose to go for Arcane Boots first. So his Blink Dagger is severely delayed. So that's a timing window for the boys over on HORs, because they know that until Panda gets his Blink Dagger, he won't really be able to engage effectively unless if they find himself caught out of position. But that being said, he's already a third of the way there. And Ember Spirit with Phase Boots up on him can do a lot of work over on the Bristleback. He was opted to go for a completely defensive build. Actually chose to go for 3 points up in the Bristleback passive compared to the Quill Spray. You always want to max out the Quill Spray before the Bristleback passive, since the free Quill Spray procs that you get from the Bristleback passive itself is based off the level that you have in your ability. And so while it will give you a little bit more damage resistance, having the extra damage coming out from the Quill Spray is going to make you a lot more dangerous, since you want to kill them as opposed to simply survive. You want to deter them by having that kill potential. In the middle lane, DumbleD severely shut down 5200, doing a lot of work, so even though he hates the Viper, looks like he's decided to pick it up for the good of his team. 29 last hits and 10 denies. Viper's, the reason why he's so powerful is with that Nether Toxin, you can control the Creep Echlorium by outlasting and outdenying.
They're going up top.
And we've got a smoke rotation coming out with Method Man and Gats. Gats is actually hasted up. And with the 2 points up in the Ether Shock, does do a lot of damage. And UGTFO unfortunately doesn't have his hook shot. He's one creep shy, so if he's able to get a little bit more experience, they can go for the kill, but DJ Ganja does have that primal split, so this actually could be a complete disaster coming out for the boys of HFR. He's just skilled level 6, so he does have the hook shot. Smoke is broken. Pings are coming out. He goes in on Pastor Jerry's immediately called out position. Ancient Steel up on him. He's going to be taking full, however, with the Thunderstrike as well as the Cogs doing a lot of the Battery Assault doing a lot of work. Gat's called out with the Earth Panda's Shock, and with the 3 Spirits hitting on him. Going to be taking a full. UGTFO tries to catch him on the Clockwork. Method Man could be the sacrificial lamb. They're choosing to go over for UGTFO, who's called out without the Cogs, so he no longer has that escape mech. So good target priority coming out from them. DJ Ganja actually out of mana, so he can't use the clap. Never mind, he's got the Bristle back. He's got the Arcane Boots, and while that happens, the bottom lane looks like Bristleback's able to kill the Ember Spirit. And Method Man looks like he was able to draw enough fire for UGTFO to be able to limp back home. But I mean, that's the power of the Bristleback, especially since he's got a point of Warpath, and he does purely physical damage, and Ember Spirit relies on the Flame Guard to provide the survivability. Actually chose to go for a very early point of Slate of Fist, that's just to set up the Searing Chains. So Weed Unit off to a very good start. They were able to secure a kill on the 5 position line, but in exchange for both the supports as well as the Ember Spirit. And Razor actually chose to go for a very early point over in Eye of the Storm. What are your thoughts on this, Mule?
Yeah, I always skip the ulti until like level 8 or 9.
Yeah, I mean, usually, level 1 Eye of the Storm is fairly ineffective, yeah. So you usually want to wait until you're level 10 so you can get it. The level 2 ult up as soon as possible. A very aggressive wall being placed up by the boys from Weed Unit, so this is to spot out any TP rotations coming in the mid lane, so they know when they can engage and when to disengage.
Oh.
But the 5-man group up over in the bottom lane.
Yeah.
And the Bristleback, he's just sitting pretty. He knows that he's got TP support coming around if he needs it. DJ Ganja unfortunately doesn't have his primal split, so that's a 40-second window they can choose to exploit. But I don't think they'll be able to take the tower down in that time, just because they don't have the Mass Serpent wards up. And Ember Spirit holding on to his remnants. You usually want to place a defensive remnant when you're pushing in like this. Shadow Shaman says, screw this guys, I'm heading over mid. He wants to get his levels 6 as soon as possible. But Skywrath, Mage, and the Lion actually can choose to go for a kill if you use the concussive shot. They can blow him up before TP support can come in. So Weed Unit can be playing a lot more aggressive. Yeah, Gats can't show himself at all. The concussive shot has a massive range. 1,600 range if he's called out on it. TP support coming in with Method Man, but I don't think the two of them can do anything. Catches a great Hex over a line, but unfortunately it's only 1.75 seconds. Gats called out, one more right click from Kai, should be taking a fall. 5,200 cleans them up. Pastor J, once again the Sacrificial Lamb, and the Skywrath Mage dying to the Plasma Field. Yeah, UGTF unfortunately whiffed the Clockwork hook shot, so yeah, pushes him back with the Cogs, eats a Viper Strike to the face. DJ Ganja coming in, he's got Primal Split, 3 Remnants coming out from Kin.killa, who's diving in a bit too deep, mechanism up over on 5,200, using him to keep himself alive. He actually chooses to keep, he's going to be keep running, he might be taking full, never mind. Corrosive Skin as well as the mechanism doing a lot of work to keep himself alive. UGTFO now turned into a frog and he's going to be taking a fall. Brutal trades coming up from both teams, and DumbleD looks like Weed Unit actually came out on top, and Rizza, Jizza, and the Kin.killa are going to be picking up that regen. So he's holding on to his gold for now, so it looks like he might be choosing to rush.
Ankle boot on Razor.
DumbleD, he does it again. He does like to go for very unconventional skill and item builds. It's one of the reasons why he can, like, he does throw a lot of games by doing this. Triangle boots on Razor, very unconventional. The advantage of it, I suppose, is you do get the armor and the movement speed, as well as the sustain. But if you're going for the mech, you don't necessarily need the sustain, so you either want to go for phase boots if you want to be playing a lot more active, or treads if you want to transition more into a carry build, just because the extra survivability is also handy as well. So if you know that the enemy team are slower than you, or if they're always going to be up in your face, you want to go for treads to give you that survivability. Otherwise, if they're a lot slower than you, then you want to go for, or if they're fast, if they're about the same speed as you, then you want to go for the phase boots, so you can maneuver yourself around effectively. So it's also a lot of a lot of basis on player preference. So Blink Dagger being revealed.
On the Pandarean Brewmaster.
Yeah, it goes in. Unfortunately, blinked himself a bit too short. If he called out Method Man, that could have been a kill. Pings out. So Weed Unit, they know something's not quite right. DumbleD doesn't even have the buckler, so a long way away from his mechanism. And the early mech up in 5,200 been doing a lot of work. It kept him alive in that last engagement. Usually you see Viper players choose to opt for a second point and the poison attack, once you've got your charisma skill maxed out, just to provide that extra 10% snare. Since a 10% snare with the level 1 poison attack doesn't really give you all that much, whereas the level 2 poison attack gives you a lot more powerful snare. Smoke rotation with 3 coming up. That's been revealed. DJ Ganja catching him up. The Ancient Seals was the clap, and with 1 more right click. Ember Spirit takes a fall. Looks like the Horsemen and the Ruckus underestimating their opponent, really being taken off guard. Great teamwork coming up from the boys from Weed Unit. And the unconventional playstyle.
Really aggressive ward in the mid lane.
Yeah. That's spotting out your rotations. I've got another very aggressive ward being placed out there to spot out any movement coming in from through the jungle. From the mid. Yeah. And that mid tower being destroyed now. Losing a lot of map control. They're grouping up with 4 players over in the bot lane. So they should actually be able to take this. Looks like all 5 players have rotated over. And they're going to go for a trade. They know they can't defend this, especially with the primal split up. But they've got Mass Serpent wards, so they can definitely make this a trade if Gats decides to pop this. There we go. Mass Serpent wards have been used. Method Man still hasn't hit level 6. You usually want level 3 disruption. Level 3 glimpse before you're effective. And you've got a 4-man TP rotation. They immediately back away. Glimpse is back to Bristle back, so waste the TP. DJ Ganja's there as well. UGTFO hook shots and catches out DJ Ganja. Primal split's being forced. They have to back away there. They can't choose to fight this. Gas called out with the Ember Spirit. Toss. Ember Spirit hanging out with the Flame Guard in the background. Mystic Flag cleans them up. The cogs work against them. 5-200 called out with the Searing Chains. This is going to do enough to be to kill him though. DumbleD takes a fall. That Mechanism turning the fight around. Mass Serpent wards actually aren't being microed at all. They're not turning around to do damage to the enemy play. UTFO, he's going to be taking a fall. Catch him out the cogs to do a bit more damage on DJ Ganja. But it might be too little too late. DumbleD actually bought back for this. Runs back into the Plasma Field. Called up the Ancient Seal, but 2FI is going to be taking a fall as a sacrificial lamb. And the rest of his team, they blink on out of there. The DumbleD is able to recover somewhat, especially with that tower, but Weed Unit coming out on top, only losing that Skywrath Mage in exchange for the tail one over in the bottom lane. And were they able to deny that, or were they able to take it? No, the Mass Serpent wards took out the tower. And take a quick golden EXP check. 3,000 gold in favor of Weed Unit, and 5,000 EXP. The EXP is a lot more critical since Disruptor without the Static Storm in these team fights isn't really doing anything at all. He was able to glimpse back the Bristle back, so he was able to do that to at least provide some form of assurance for his teammates since they didn't have the Bristleback to also engage on them. Bristleback unfortunately looks like doesn't have a point over the Nasal Guru, so even if he was there, mostly be there to provide damage since he doesn't have that lockdown. And the Mass Serpent wards weren't microed, so a lot of damage potential that was wasted. But the Shadow Shaman at least has picked up level 6, so he's got the Mass Serpent wards to be able to do his thing. Of that level 4 Ether Shock does output a fair amount of damage in these fights. He's holding on to his gold, so it looks like he's going to be rushing towards that Blink Dagger. Hookshot over and past the J. Looks like he's been eating every single one of the UGTFO's hookshots. Easy kill for them. DumbleD with the damage leech. He's going to start smacking on that tower. He still is a far way away from his mech. And 2FI as well as 5-200 hanging around. Viper actually with the Vitality booster, so 5-200 might be building towards a harder Tarrasque as soon as possible. You usually see the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, just because you've got the 12-second cooldown as well as the 950 range. One of the best Aghanim Scepter upgrades in the game. Because of the amount of ganking as well as teamfight potential it gives you. Since Viper Strike goes through BKB, and at level 3 it's an 80% snare for movement speed and attack speed. So if he's able to catch out the Ember Spirit with the Viper Strike, he completely negates his ability to be able to escape the enemy unless he's preemptively placed a Fire Revenant. But Ember Spirit, Phase Drum up on him, so very standard build. Damage leech being used over on the Skywrath Mage, and 5-200, fantastic trap coming out from them. Clap as well as the Primal Split, but could be a bit too late. Method Man and Gats, however, are going to be taking forward. The Immolation coming out from the Ember, the Fire Bruling. Ember Spirit, Kin.killa fleeing for his life, drops the Fire Remnant. He has a TP, but doesn't want to use it quite yet. Choosing to re-engage back, he's called out the Ancient Seal, and 2FI able to secure another kill over in the carry. Skywrath Mage is doing a lot of work against this Ember Spirit. Very surprised they chose to pick it up as their one position hero, especially given the fact that there's a Skywrath Mage in play. And Razor, he just backed the hell out of that fight.
Farm.
I mean, the advantages of the Ember Spirit is the fact that he could split push, similar to a Morphling. You drop a Remnant preemptively, go in, Blink Clap over Method Man, glimpses him back, but eats a finger of death. Past the J, he's a bit fed up. He's been the vast majority of the deaths. He's 1 for 5. So it looks like a frustration finger just to make sure the Disruptor wasn't getting away. Pipe of Insight very early on, up on the Bristleback. Usually I'm not a huge fan of the Rush Pipe over the Bristleback, but with the mech already built on the Viper, and against this lineup where the majority of damage at this stage is magical, the only physical form of DPS I have to worry about is the Razor. His Ember Spirit, he doesn't have enough points on the Slate of Fist to do enough physical damage since he's got a 30-second cooldown. And Ember Spirit early on, until he gets at least a Battle Fury or maxed out Slate of Fist, is based predominantly on magic damage. And so with the Bristleback being able to provide that Pipe of Insight buff, as well as the Viper with the mech, you've got two very tanky cores. They can run in, absorb a lot of damage, and the Bristle and the Brewmaster as well, very tanky core, especially with the Drunken Brawler. Sky turns into a chicken, but he just backs away. He knows they can't kill him. And the Ember Spirit pickup, very questionable. Not quite working out. The Clockwork Goblin was able to do a lot of work in the early stages of the game, but now they're grouping up as 5. If he hookshots in, he's going to be eating a Mystic Flare to the face. And so the cogs are working against him as much as they're working for him. They spot out the Razor with the wards being placed there. And DumbleD, still no mech up on him. He will be hammering it up fairly shortly. And he chose not to go for any more points over in the Plasma Field, so choosing to max out the Link as well as the Unstable Current. It works very well against heroes such as the Skywrath Mage and the Bristleback, since they constantly have to use single target spells on you. But the lack of AoE damage coming out from the Plasma Field is one of the best nukes in the game because it can do up to 370 damage based on how far away you are from them. And because of its huge AoE, you're very likely to hit 3-4 heroes with every Plasma Field. So lack of AoE presence coming out from him. However, he does have the mechanism. And the signs of life being shown from the Horsemen and the Ruckus, if they are able to drag the game into the later stages with the Razor as well as the Ember Spirit, they do have a much superior late game lineup to the boys over in Weed Unit. Just because at a certain point, the Skywrath Mage, he does do a huge amount of damage, but once they pick up BKBs, you can completely disregard what he does. The Shadow Shaman can provide a lot of split pushing presence, especially in conjunction with the Ember Spirit. It looks like they're going for engagement. Mass Open Woods drop. Dino Ganja blinks in. With the clap, Static Storm doing a lot of work, preventing him from using the Primal Split. He's actually going to take a fall before he splits. Great fight being taken by Horsemen and Ruckus. Good recognition coming out from Method Man. 2FI. Turns around, unfortunately, is purged. Pastor J also fleeing for his life. Runs forward 5-100, left to his own devices. Up against DumbleD. He is able to kill him, but he takes a fall. And Horsemen and Ruckus are able to take a fight. They completely wipe Weed Unit, force a buyback, and are able to get a triple kill over the Ember Spirit. So we're talking about how he takes a long time to get his farm. Looks like he's found it. 3 points up in the Slate of Fist now. He's recovered very nicely. Usually do see a lot more points over in the Searing Chains early on to provide that extra lockdown, but maxing out Slate of Fist when you're fighting this early on as a 5-on-5 does provide a lot more teamfight presence. Sky actually choosing to go on and Kin.killa denies him. Actually could be going for a kill right now if he's not too careful. Fleeing for his life. Sky knows that if he runs out of remnants, he can go for a kill. Gats runs as well, provides some covering fire. He's got the Hex, uses the Hex. And Lion looks like he fingered UGTFO in the background. Gats turns around, catches him out with the shackle, but the rest of his teammates have already boosted out of there, and he's going to be the sacrificial lamb. Method Man, Glimpse just came off cooldown, but used it before. Wasn't able to accomplish much, and a Blink Dagger up over the line. That was a fantastic Static Storm that last engagement. Catches out to Pandarean Brewmaster, preventing him from splitting. Yeah. If he had gotten that split off, that would have been a wipe for Horsemen and Ruckus, especially with how closely they were grouped up. It just goes to show you how powerful the Disruptor and the Shadow Shaman combination is. Once they are able to get their ultimates up. Looks like a one-man smoke from Method Man, just to be able to buy his arcane boots from the look of it. The supports from Horsemen and Ruckus are playing a little bit scared. Very defensive ward being placed there to be able to ensure that they can't try to catch him up from the high ground when they decide to attack the tier 2 in mid. So if you're able to sneak up on the high ground, if you're able to position yourself here, and the enemy team are grouped up there, if you've got a Blink Initiator, such as the Panda, you can jump in, get a 2-3 man clap, then Primal Split immediately. Mech up on the Razor, so he has able to recover somewhat, still very delayed. Roshan's been pinged out in a 5-man smoke rotation coming out from the Boys of Weed Unit. Just from that last engagement, the gold difference has dropped. It went from about 7,000 back up to about 4,000.
Oh no.
Oh god, they run into UGTFO, caught at the concussive charge as well as the Ancient Seal, pops his Blade Mail before the Primal Split lands. They're able to focus him down, connect on Static Storm, because Static Storm was way too late, however. The Primal Split's already happened. Thrown up to the air by the Storm Panda, and he's going to be taking another fall. So 3-0 just off the back of the Primal Split. Great smoke rotation coming up from the Boys of Weed Unit, and they're grouping up to push the tier 2. The one upside of Horsemen and Ruckus with their heroes being so low level is the fact that they do respawn a lot faster. And so they can choose to try to exploit the advantage with the ultimates over from Weed Unit being down. Most of the Primal Split looks like the Finger of Death. 40 seconds before it's off cooldown, so they will be having it up again. But keep in mind, this is game 1 of a best of 3. And so unlike ODL1 where it was a best of 2, this time around, it's because it's the best of 3, you've got that flexibility to be able to screw around the first game. To be able to probe your enemy, try to see what sort of playstyle they go for, what sort of hero picks they favor, and then go against that. Razor looks like he's going for Drums of Endurance. So Drums and the Tranquil Boots just give you a lot of movement speed. Still would have preferred either the Treads or the Phase. But with the mech up, Razor is able to provide a fair amount of DPS in these engagements as well sustained. Hence the mechanism increase is effectively like buying a Vanguard for every member of your team. And the stacks are being cleared out by Sky, with his 2 supports leeching some EXP. Level 10 and level 9 line, compared to level 8 as supports over in Horsemen the Ruckus. And they're clearing out both their stacks. So huge influx of gold going in favor of Weed Unit. Looks like he preemptively pops his pipe. Could have been a misclick or mate. No, they're aware the supports rotating in. 5-man smoke gank. Very aggressive wards being placed by the boys from Weed Unit. They want to ensure that they starve out the enemy, get that gold lead, and then use that to try to break high ground. DumbleD reveals the smoke. Runs into 3, gets this Link off. Link is unfortunately broken. He gets 1 charge. DJ Ganja doesn't have Primal Split. He's going to have it in 5 more seconds. He's able to turn around. DumbleD copying a lot of damage. UGTFO burned out the Ancient Seal. Static Storm over on DJ Ganja. They're able to kill him before he gets off the Primal Split. Cog Push unfortunately pushes him out. So UGTFO just a bit off with the cogs. But they don't lose any in exchange for 2. Clap unfortunately whiffs over on UGTFO. Uses the Primal Split. UGTFO could be taking a fall. Yeah, he's definitely going to be taking a fall with both Brutalies running over on him. Uses the cogs to trap out the Fire Panda. He turns around. He knows the Fire Panda's majority of the damage, but unfortunately he takes a kill with the Immolate, being a bit too much. Ember Spirit in the background looks like he was able to get a kill. So he's going in for a retaliatory kill, and Gats with the Shackle. Custom shots being used. Ancient Seal's being used on Gats as opposed to the Kin.killa. So he might be the fleet. Never mind. The Viper Strike is there to lock him in place. He wants to turn around, at least try to get a kill over on the Skywrath Mage. But unfortunately, he's able to Remnant out. He didn't jump to his Remnant. And with the TP, he should be able to make it out. Ether Shot cleans up the Skywrath Mage. Very messy fight, and the boys from Horsemen and Ruckus are doing it. DumbleD trying to run through. He doesn't have the unit walking from the phase boots, so the creeps are body blocking him. 5200 caught up the Link now. And no TP support coming in. DumbleD's going balls to the wall. Either Storm be used for this. And 5200's going to be taken forward. We've got TP coming in from Lion, but Lion actually going to be dying. DumbleD doesn't give a single fuck. Sky is also there as well. The entire team is so rotated in. Lion caught out with the Glimpse. However, he was able to get the Earth Spike off. DumbleD taking a lot of damage. Used the mech. 4 stacks up with the goo. Running in a bit too far on his own. Sky turned into a chicken. DumbleD uses the Link again. Throws out the Plasma Field, but takes a fall past the J. Able to catch him out the Earth Spike. Got a little bit too greedy there. Should have backed off the instant he went past the tier 2. Since he had the damage linked off, he could have used that to get some farm. But while I say that, 24 minutes into the game, Ember Spirit picks up his Battle Fury. So he can start providing that split pushing presence. Since Weed Unit, they do have a lot of pick off with the Blink Clamp coming up from the Brewmaster, but unless they're able to Ancient Seal him, Ember Spirit will always be the Remnant back home. So Skywrath Mage, going towards that 4-star, he has to be there in order to catch up the Ember Spirits. Otherwise, he can continue to place pressure all across the map. And the boys from Weed Unit, they don't have a very strong push. They've got strong push in the sense they've got tanky cores, so they can sit there, absorb a lot of fire, and they won't be taken out by the tech damage coming out from the boys from Horsemen and Ruckus. But because they lack a dedicated pushing hero, if they had a Shadow Shaman, or if they had a Lycanthrope as their farmer, they would be able to take these towers. Looks like we've got a tactical pause coming out from Weed Unit as 5200 pauses, then pings out Roshan. Apparently they've got 3k ping, so maybe we'll forgive them just this once. I don't know, Emil, that looks like a tactical pause to me.
But this Viper's rushing, rushing hard.
Yeah, Viper rushing hard.
Just want to be more tanky.
Which is a bit surprising considering the fact that they've got 3 very tanky cores, so they're playing it safe. Because they know that they've got the Ancient Seal for the Ember Spirit, they've got the Viper Strike for the Ember Spirit as well, or they could use it on the Razor. Since there's only 2 physical cores for Horsemen and Ruckus, since Clockwork, while he can initiate, he's not going to provide a lot of damage in the late stage of the game. He's mostly there for the lockdown. And so they could pretty much disregard the Clockwork if the game goes late enough. And the Skywrath Mage and the Lion can blow him up with the Mystic Flare and Finger of Death. And so if they're able to pick up the heart,
they should start split pushing with the Shadow Shaman and Ember Spirit.
Yeah, that's the only way Horsemen and Ruckus can recover right now. They have to split push. They have to find a bit more EXP over on the Disruptor. UGTFO, he's been farming very well, all things considered. Blade Mail up on him, he's been using it to great effect in the last few engagements. It looks like he could be going for a BKB against this lineup. It completely mitigates everything the boys from Weed Unit can throw at him, apart from the Viper Strike. Gats looks like he's farming towards that Blink Dagger. He's got Arcane Boots up on him. So they definitely have to be able to start providing that split pushing presence. They've got their tier 2s up for top and bot. Mid has been gone, but they should be able to defend the tier 3, especially with the Ember Spirit. So he should be able to provide split pushing presence, drop a Remnant in. You can zip out to the Remnant back home, or you can zip out the Remnant to the trees and TP back home. And with that Sleight of Fist and Battle Fury, it's very difficult to breach high ground against an Ember Spirit. He just throws out the Sleight of Fist, and if you're clumped up, you're going to be eating a lot of damage. And Method Man apologizing to his mom for being a drug fuck disappointment. So both teams taking this time off to provide a few shoutouts. Yeah, him and Wolfcon should be on the same team. I feel like that would be fairly funny. In terms of item progression, looks like the other two cores, the Bristleback and the Brewmaster, they haven't really progressed the items too well. Brewmaster is going towards the Aghanim Scepter. He's halfway towards it. Sky, ever since he's finished his pipe, he hasn't built another item. And one of the biggest issues with the Bristleback is while you are very tanky, you need to give them a reason to want to focus you. So the biggest mistake a lot of Bristleback players do is they build tanky items on him, they make him as tanky as possible, and then they realize that the enemy team can just ignore him and then turn around and kill him at the very end. Especially with the Disruptor, they glimpse him back, or they just lock him in place at the kinetic field, or the cogs from the Clockwork. Bristleback has to build damage, especially against a lineup like this, where you know that they're not going to be able to burst you down just based because of your Bristleback passive. So you want to build damage items on him to force the enemy to want to focus you down. So it looks like at 5200 as well as the Brewmaster have disconnected. They should be reconnecting shortly. Probably a few internet issues on their end. So would like to see Bristleback building towards something like maybe an Armlet, a Morrigan. If he's able to build an AC, it fits the bill for being both defensive and offensive. So the negative armor does a lot of work, especially against the Ember Spirit and the Razor, who have terrible edgy growth. And while Razor this game has stacked a lot of armor with the Tranquil Boots, the Ring of Kin.killa, and the mech, usually Razor doesn't have all too much armor in the late stages of the game, and the Ember Spirit, only 5 armor up on him. He's got Ember Spirit and Razor have very low stat gain. It's just to compensate for the fact that with items they're very powerful at all stages. So with that maxed out Sleight of Fist, actually chose to go for a second point in the Fire Remnant. You usually see a lot of pro players completely skip all points in Flame Remnant after you get level 1. Since it only gives you an extra 50 damage per charge, so it doesn't really give you that much bang for your buck, because you want to use 1 Remnant anyway. Early on in the game, when you can afford to use 3 Remnants to go for a kill, but later on you want to hold on to your Remnants. Since if you die, if you're able to drop a Remnant before you die, you can buy back and sit back into the fight. It gives you the ability to engage and disengage. And having that maxed out Searing Chains gives you a 3-second lockdown 2 heroes. So every time you throw out the Sleight of Fist, if you can Searing Chain a hero, not only do you do a lot of dot damage, you also give your team that window of opportunity to be able to go in for a kill. So Lion with the Blink Dagger up on him as well as the Arcane Boots. He's going to be providing a huge amount of lockdown. Chose to go for Arcane Boots as opposed to the Tranquil Boots or the Treads, just to ensure that he doesn't have to max out the mana drain. So that means he's got the level 4 Hex, which is 3.5 seconds. Disables, it does a lot, the Hex does a huge amount of work. It actually got up to 4 seconds, never mind, it was buffed recently. So 4 seconds when you don't have evasion, when you're moving at 100 movement speed, and when you can't use any skills or abilities, especially if you could catch out the Ember Spirit. Since Ember Spirit doesn't want to go towards a BKB unless he absolutely has to, and so the Blink line can force the Ember Spirit to go for a BKB. Since Ember Spirit wants to hang far back in the wings of the fight, keep throwing out that Sleight of Fist and only engage when he knows that the disable abilities from the enemy team are already down. Since all of your damage coming from Sleight of Fist, and because it has such a low cooldown, you want to play similar to a Kunkka. You want to hang back, constantly keep throwing out your abilities, and only engage when you know that they can't turn around to kill you. If they've used up all their spells, that's when you want to engage, or when you know that you can beat them in a man fight. Since if he goes toe to toe against the Bristleback, the Brewmaster, or the Viper, all 3 of them will be able to out-tank his abilities and turn around and kill him until he builds enough DPS. So these engagements, he wants to hang as far away from the fight as possible, while Razor's in the thick of it, drawing as much fire as possible, saying, hey, look at me, I'm going to leech you. I've got Eye of the Storm up, I'm zapping you with lightning, focus me. And so if they're able to kill the Razor very quickly on, or if they're able to silence the Ember Spirit, catch him unawares in the back line, then Weed Unit have a huge window that they could press to be able to win the game. But with the Bristleback as well as the Pandarean Brewmaster, both of these cores don't scale very well, and so is the Razor, so is the Viper. Sorry, Viper needs to have a 1 item advantage in order to be able to go toe to toe against the enemy carry. And so the later the game goes, the more favor it goes towards Horsemen and the Ruckus. And so they know this, and with that split pushing presence from both the Shadow Shaman as well as the Ember Spirit, they know they can drag the game out for as long as possible, and once the game goes late, they can turn it around for the win. It looks like both players are back to 100 ping. So the game hopefully should be resuming shortly. Any thoughts on the game so far, Mule?
Yeah, I think just Dire side just having a little bit of lead at the moment. But yeah, I think the Horsemen Ruckus can still come back if Ember Spirit get farmed. Who's better if you start stacking the Ancient as well?
Yeah, definitely. So Ember Spirit, if he wants to play it super safe, he probably wants to go for a BKB, but Kin.killa, he's a player that hates going for BKB. He doesn't go for it even if he absolutely has to. And so probably going to be stacking damage if he's able to pick up a Daedalus very quickly.
The Seal will just kill him every time.
Yeah, Ancient Seal and the Hex. So you've got two very powerful abilities that will completely kill them.
Yeah.
Bristleback chooses to go for a Blade Mail. I really don't like this item on the Bristleback, just because it gives them even less reason to want to hit you. And the whole point of a Bristleback is you want to draw fire. If you're not drawing fire, you're not doing your job. So you want to be right up in their face. You want to build items that force the enemy team to deal with you. It's why Mech is such a good item on the Bristleback, is A, it gives you more survivability than the Vanguard, which is a fairly common item on him, and B, it gives them a reason to kill you, because if they ignore the Bristleback, you could use the Mech to save your teammates, and if you're able to build up enough Warpath charges, you could do a lot of damage. So Armlet Medigian works very well on him, as such items as the Heaven's Halberd, which gives you that utility of disarm. So even if you're not able to do a lot of damage, you could at least disarm them. So Bristleback in this game probably wanted to go for something a bit more aggressive. Hookshot over in 5200, he's caught out completely on his own. Static Link up on him as well as the Kinetic Field. Slater Fist in the Searing Chains, catches out two in the backline. DJ Gundra runs and walks into the Static Storm in the background. 2 FI, push back on the Cogs, eats a lot of mass open world damage. Mystic Flare drops over in UGTFO. He's able to just barely keep himself alive. DumbleD takes a fall. Slater Fist doing so much work in this engagement. 5200, no damage up on him. Gats is caught up in the Kinetic Field with the Boulder Toss over on him. And unfortunately, Kinetic Field's just shy, so he takes a fall to DJ Gundra. His Brulings are about to wear off. Method Man's going to be his next target of choice. Fleeing for his life. Glimpses him back while that time UGTFO, still able to stay alive through all of this. Hookshot's coming off cooldown in 20 seconds, but DJ Gundra blinks up. And so they trade 2 for 2. A support in the core in exchange for a support in the core. And Mass Open Wards were used defensively for that, but Ember Spirit was able to stay alive through the entirety of the engagement, and you saw how much work he was able to do just by throwing out that Slater Fist. So Horsemen and Ruckus playing their draft to perfection. They have to raise up, getting tanky, getting up front, drawing as much fire as possible. While the Ember Spirit waits in the wings, doing the huge amount of damage in the background. Unfortunately, whiffed his combo, caught up the Angel Steel and the Mystic Flare. Flame Guard prevents the majority of that damage. He unfortunately whiffed his combo. If he was able to slay the fist before he Searing Chains, he would have caught out DJ Gundra. Unfortunately, he instead feeds. Method Man turned into a frog and is bitten down by Viper. Did buy out right before he died. And he actually bought a headdress. A bit of a panic buy coming out from the Disruptor, unless he's deciding to go for a pipe. But even then, 4-staff is the priority at this point in the game. And with that advantage, the weird unit, they could go for Roshan, especially with the Bristleback there. Because able to constantly break the Lincolns and provide that negative armor. When you're trying to go for a Roshan, negative armor is absolutely key. It's the reason why Lycanthrope builds a Medallion of Courage. It's the reason why Shadow Shaman, if you're playing Die, you want to build a Medallion of Courage. If you can reduce the armor of Roshan, you kill him a lot more quickly. And they know this is happening. UGTFO scattered out with the Rocket Flare.
Oh, they popped the pipe.
Yeah, they popped the pipe very preemptively. Sky seems to be jumping the gun on that. But with the Goose Stacks, they should be able to clear out Roshan very quickly with no contest. And Viper picks up the Aegis, so they know that 5200 is their only real form of physical DPS. Since the Bristleback chose to go for completely tanky items. So the Blade Mail up on him, he really should be building towards that
There's
Assault
a
Cuirass.
on the Viper.
Yeah, it's a Viper, very, very tanky. I mean, in that last game, they dropped everything they had to try to kill the Viper, and he still was able to walk out. He didn't have any damage, so he was forced back. But the fact that he could live through the entirety of Horsemen and Ruckus' arsenal, and still re-engage at the very end, just goes to show how tanky that Viper is. The Corrosive Skin and the Harder to Rusk. He could choose to go for a BKB just to counteract the Disruptor, since Disruptor can't do anything to you once you have a BKB, and since he doesn't have any kind of hard CC like the Shadow Shaman, you can pop it whenever you want to be able to try to kill him. If he drops a Static Storm on you, you pop BKB, walk through his Kinetic Field, and then laugh at him. So 5200 farming up a Storm. In terms of net worth, we see he's leading the scoreboards, over 10,000 gold up on him. Ember Spirit is actually climbing very high, so he is doing what he can to try to recover. But the Razor looks like he could be going towards the BKB. He definitely needs to go for BKB if he wants to stay alive these engagements, just because the Pandarean Brewmaster. And Razor wants you to focus him, or wants to draw as much fire as possible, and the Pandarean Brewmaster says, hell no today, just throws him up with the Storm Panda, and completely removes him from the fight for 8 seconds. Double damage room being pinged out. Looks like they dropped a ward right next to each other. So Gat, unfortunately, is a bit unaware. Very defensive wards coming out from Horsemen and Ruckus. And they're playing it well. They know that if the later the game goes, the more their draft favors them. So they have to try to drag it out for as long as possible. They have to find their farm. So they've got Clockwork Goblin to be able to go for pickoffs if they're able to find them. But otherwise, they want to hang back and try to wait it out, force the enemy team to initiate on them. And lead unit, they're constantly grouping up. They've got a 4-man smoke rotation. They're using Sky as the retard magnet as bait in the mid lane. But Horsemen and Ruckus, they're not going to be initiating on the Bristleback, especially with a Bristleback with a pipe and a blade now. That's obviously bait. They drop a sentry ward, they're able to catch out the ward, go in. They decide to initiate over on Sky, clap as well as Primal Split. They glimpse back the line who blinked in. They're able to instantly kill Gaps before he can drop off the Storm Spirit wards. As our wards, the Storm Panda throws him up in the air, finger of death over a Method Man. A lot of hate for that Disruptor. Jumping the gun a wee bit, he was dead for two rights. I mean, the finger of death, bit unnecessary, but I guess he wanted to help out the rest of his team. And the supports will be up in 25 seconds or so. So it's up to the Ember Spirit, the Razor, and the Clockwork Goblin to try to defend. UGTFO drops the cogs preventively. Great recognition coming up from him. Delays the creep push. Sleight of Fist thrown out, doing a lot of damage. He has to be very careful when he uses that Sleight of Fist, since it leaves that remnant where you know that he's going to jump back to once the Sleight of Fist ends. So if the Skywrath Mage happens to position himself so that the instant Sleight of Fist ends, you catch him out with the Ancient Seal, and the Viper can run in with the Viper Strike. That's a dead Ember Spirit, so Kin.killa has to play it safe. But looks like they're giving up. Weed unit, they back away.
They're backing off, even if they have Aegis.
Yeah, they have the Aegis advantage, and they don't have the Static Storm. So they are backing away, but they are clearing out the Ancient Stack. So this is Weed unit. They're not taking any chances. They're playing it safe. They're playing it conservative, and they're just deprived. They're playing it the macro game. They're just going to take as much farm as they can from the enemy team, get their heroes as farmed as possible. Since if it does go into the late game, into the ultra late game, if your cores have a lot more farm than them, you know, it doesn't really matter what hero you are. You can simply just beat them down, especially if your support's able to get a lot of farm. Skywrath Mage, 4-staff up on him, 4-staff almost up on the line, so blink and force. Compared to Method Man, who doesn't even have a 4-staff yet on him. He's got a headdress for whatever reason, and a blink dagger up on the Shadow Shaman. So while Gat has recovered fairly nicely, the Disruptor, who really needs to be landing these clutch Static Storm to win these fights, isn't doing as well. And he actually chose to max Thunderstrike over the Kinetic Field. You always want to max Kinetic Field up after the Glimpse if you're going to be playing that kind of role. You want to max out Thunderstrike if you're playing a very aggressive Disruptor role. So for instance, the Disruptor Nyx Assassin dual lane that sneaky Nyx Assassins like to run, as well as North American Rejects. When you run that dual lane against a tri-lane, it works because the huge sheer amount of damage coming out from the Thunderstrike and the Nyx Assassin's carry pace to prevent you from killing him right off the bat means that you can turn around and go for trades. But in this kind of lineup, when you're playing Disruptor as a hero to control the enemy hero's position as well as their movement, you want the maxed out Kinetic Field to impede their movement, and you want the maxed out Glimpse. So the Static Storm, you only want 1 point up in it just because it provides you the way to cancel Blink Daggers and prevent juking, so it provides you vision every time it ticks. It's more of a utility skill as opposed to a straight up damage skill. Tier 2 should be taking a fall. They really can't defend this. But they're grouping up as 5. They're still not split pushing, even though that's the only way they can recover. So Horsemen and Ruckus, looks like they're playing a little bit afraid. They're not really executing their draft as effectively as I'd like. Ember Spirit, Mithril Hammer up on him, so he could be going for a Desolator or he could be going for a BKB. Probably realizes that he might have to go for a BKB this game, but if he does do so, then the Viper, that's one less damage item coming up from the Ember Spirit, and the Viper can just man-fight him down. Sleight of Fist doing a lot of work. Ether Shock as well, clearing out the creep wave. They do have a lot of ways to be able to delay push. Sky isn't using his pipe to ensure the creep wave can push up, but looks like his pipe is actually on cooldown. Looks like Method Man's been having a bit of lag as well. Sleight of Fist, Searing Chain combination. Over on 5-200 is actually very low right now, but he's got the Aegis of the Immortal. Looks like he's building towards the Aghanim Scepter. He runs forward, he wants to die. So getting his Linkin Park songs playing in the background, decides to be a little bit emo, runs forward, pops the Aegis. Bit of a premature Aegis being popped. Mass Serpent Ward's dropped, unfortunately didn't catch him up. The Searing Chain's doing a lot of work. Static Link catching him out in the background. Disruptor takes a fall. Mystic Flare cleans up DumbleD. Kin.killa throws out the Sleight of Fist, doing a lot of work. Storm Panda takes a fall. UGTFO goes over on 5-200 because he knows that the damage is going to be leached from the Viper, but with the Corrosive Skin and with the Nether Tox, he's still doing a fair amount of damage. 5-200 actually takes a fall to the Mass Serpent Wards, so UGTFO sacrifices life to ensure that happens, buys himself back into the game. Kin.killa leading the charge, he knows that with the Searing Chains and Sleight of Fist combination, he can catch people out and try to go for a kill. DJ Ganja with the ultimate now on cooldown, backs off. Panda doesn't really do all too much without the ultimate. But without a BKB, the Drunken Haze still is very effective. They've decided to back off. They're taking no chances. And all in all, a very messy fight. Horsemen and Ruckus actually won that. If they didn't force out the buyback from UGTFO, could have gone a lot better for Weed Unit. But that being said, they're able to do a little bit of chip damage and able to force out the buyback. So they are still technically ahead in terms of gold. 10,000 gold lead over for the boys in Weed Unit, but 15,000 EXP lead. But they are able to maintain their high ground. The later the game goes, the more difficult it's going to become for the boys over in Weed Unit. Since you saw 5-200, even though he only built tanky defensive items, he still took a fall just through the Mass Serpent Wards. And once you get the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, those Mass Serpent Wards do a huge amount of damage. What are your thoughts on how Weed Unit can try to break high ground there, Mule?
Yeah, they have to go on the Kin.killa first, because it's does the most damage. It just stays behind and start a fist if you want.
Yeah.
And once he pick up his Desolator, it's gonna do a lot of damage.
Do you think he should still be going for a Desolator? Do you think he should be going towards that BKB? Because another issue with a carry against the Brewmaster is if you don't have a BKB, he hazes you. He claps you and he just controls you that way by preventing you from attacking and by slowing your attack speed. And that's not even including the Skywrath Mage's Ancient Seal or the line with the finger and the hex.
Yeah, he could go both. Yeah.
I mean, with the way the game is going, he probably...
Man to man, like, yeah.
Yeah, he probably wants to go for the Desolator because he needs the damage. Because the rest of his team, they can provide the control. All he has to do right now is provide damage. But if he misplays by a single step, if he's caught out of position, then that could throw the game for them.
It'll be game over.
So a lot of pressure over on Kin.killa. He's been doing squats though, so his back's pretty strong. He's going to be carrying the rest of his team through. Well, they try to do what they can to try to hold on to high ground. They still haven't been doing any split pushing. All these tattoos for Weed Unit, they haven't taken any damage since about the 20-minute mark. 5-200, almost has his Aghanim Scepter. He's about 500 gold away from it. Sky, BKB up on him. So Bristleback, now he's going to do a lot more damage because he could ignore all the CC coming out from Horsemen and Ruckus. And if he could disregard all the control and all the snares, then you could run up in their face and start smacking them down. Because with the Nasal Goo, you could kite, you could snare people, run up and hit them in the face. Since with the Warpath, especially with the level 3 Warpath, you actually do a fair amount of damage. So now he's got a reason for people to want to focus him, since he knows that if they don't control him, if they don't back away from him, he'll just straight up kill them. Still would have preferred Assault Cuirass much earlier on over the Blade Mail. The Blade Mail really doesn't give him anything at this point in the game, since, especially when you're this far ahead. But that being said, his items have progressed very well in terms of net worth. Lion 4-staff now up on him. Skywrath Mage. Looks like he could be either building towards the Yule Scepter or the Rod of Valley. Rod of Valley, very powerful item of the Skywrath because it ensures your Mystic Flare will get its full duration off. And Mystic Flare, especially once you're able to get the level 3 ultimate, huge amount of damage that comes out from him. Pretty much pops the Razor every single fight. But BKB up on Razor. So Horsemen and Ruckus, they learned the mistake from ODL1, which was no BKBs, so this time they're core players building those BKBs. They're not taking any mistakes. Clockwork building towards the Aghanim Scepter, great upgrade for the Clockwork Goblin, reduces the cooldown to 12 seconds. So it lets him jump in like Batman and get the fuck out. Do a lot of damage. We've got a 5-man smoke rotation coming out from the boys from Horsemen and Ruckus. Well, Weed Unit, they're sticking together, they really are living up to the name. They're sticking together the unit, always grouping up as 4 or as 5. Just to make sure that they can't go for pickoffs. Because they know that on the 5-on-5 engagement, they have the upper hand, just because of the sheer amount of gold and experience they have. But if they get picked off, they can suddenly throw away their lead. So Aghanim Scepter now up on the Viper. So he's going to use that to control all the enemy heroes. There's a 950 range as well. Means that he can engage in the back line. Since the Disruptor as well as the Shadow Shaman, they've got fairly short ranges for their spells. So if you're able to catch out one of them with the Viper Strike, or if you're able to catch out Kin.killa. Smoke unfortunately was wasted. DumbleD still...
Is Panda building Refresher? I have no idea.
Yeah, it looks like Panda's going to be going towards a Refresher. Very powerful item on the Brewmaster, just because it gives you... It's not so much for the double ult, it's more for the fact that your ult won't be ever be on cooldown. DumbleD caught out with the clap, pops the BKB, has to actually TP himself away, and the decisive fight, split being used. Static Storm being dropped as well. Connect Field being used. UGTFO. Call down the bad plays. Massive Boards are doing a lot of damage though. Method Man drops a Static Storm. Gats and UGTFO take a fall. DumbleD, BKB's now 1 off. He didn't get a great Static Link off. Kin.killa caught up the Ancient Seal. He's going to be taking a fall with a few more right clicks. Clap finishes him off with right click coming out from Viper. 2F high, just barely lives. And Method Man TP's on him. He should be fine unless Pastor J is able to catch him out. And the very early 4-stars coming out from the support players completely neuters the effectiveness of the Razors, and he has to get a good link off the fight. If you can simply force stuff away whatever hero he's linking, prevents him from being as effective as you'd like. So great recognition coming out from the support players from Weed Unit. And Horsemen and Ruckus, they're really on the ropes. 12,000 gold lead now in favor of Weed Unit, 20,000 EXP lead. The EXP lead might be insurmountable at this point. They're going for another Roshan. So Weed Unit knows that while the late game is secure for Horsemen and Ruckus based off their draft, if they get enough items, then it doesn't matter so much, since Razor needs a fair amount of farm to be effective, and so does the Ember Spirit. And Ember Spirit actually chose to go for the Desolator. Unfortunately, was called out by the Ancient Seal, and he immediately died as a result of that. He can't let himself be called out if he's just going to be really damaged like that. And Roshan takes a fall. Looks like 5200 is going to be carrying it. Rod of Alley, never mind, it's going to be the Bristle back. So I guess 5200 knows that they can't really kill him. DJ Ganja, Refresher, looks like it's flying out towards him. So Primal Split, never going to be on cooldown. So he can afford to use it to go for a single pick-off, and then when the next fight happens he can refresh, so he has it up again. Since if a fight happens to last longer than 26 seconds, something's gone terribly wrong. You don't necessarily need the double ultimate, so it's not like a...
Panda actually died real fast on that fight.
Yeah.
Love the slide of fist from Kin.killa. Just died real quick.
But I mean, his job is, if he could draw fire from the rest of his teammates, they could turn around and engage very effectively. Viper now going towards what looks like a Manta style, so Yasha already up on him. Since 3 tanky calls from Weed Unit, they're very difficult to bring down. Especially with the lack of BKB over an Ember Spirit. He can't let himself get called out at all by the Ancient Seal or by the Hex. Gats and Method Man, they've been doing the best that they can. Would like to see a few more Mass Open World traps coming out from Gats, but he's been doing fairly effective in these fights. Has been called out of position, unfortunately. But due to the superior initiation range of Weed Unit, it is very hard, just because Shadow Shaman's a very slow hero. And it looks like they're baiting with the 2 supports up front. Catch out Sky with the Searing Chains as well as the Hex. Serpentwood's been dropped, and his Stack Storm dropped a bit too late, so Gats can be taken for as a result. Aghanim Scepter Primal Split doing so much damage. Kin.killa called out with the Viper Strike, turns around Sky, doing a huge amount of damage. The Sleight of Fist is doing a lot of work, especially with that Desolator. Looks like having a wee bit of lag. Cycloned up over on UGTFO. Pastor J blinks forward. Sky is able to catch him out the Disruptive Method Man. DumbleD turns around, tries to get a kill, just keeping himself alive. Sleight of Fist finally kills him, but pops the Aegis. And that Sleight of Fist actually gets him a lot of kills in that fight. So it was 3 for 4. Drunken Haze over in the Ember Spirit, but he could simply TP himself out.
Oh no.
DJ Ganja, yeah, he doesn't have enough damage or enough lockdown. He could have actually chosen to refresh and Primal Split again, but I don't think he would have been able to get the stun off in time. So the Desolator for Kin.killa doing a lot of work, but the rest of his team really have to step it up. That Static Storm, unfortunately, was a bit too late for Brewmaster. If they'd called out Brewmaster with the Static Storm, even for a second or two longer, that fight could have gone completely differently. But UGTFO, that Cyclone completely neuters his effectiveness in that engagement. And DumbleD, trying to do what he can, but because he's been playing from behind, Razor's a hero that you never want to play from behind. You want to play when you're ahead, or when you're dead even. When you're playing from behind like this, when the supports can kite you with the 4-staff and they can break your link, and when you don't have the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, so your Eye of the Storm isn't doing as much damage as you'd like, very easy for Weed Unit to be able to kill you quickly. 5200 using the Viper Strike to actually farm creeps. So with the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, he knows that he can afford to use it whenever the hell he wants. With only 1 tattoo left, looks like the tattoo in the top lane actually took a fall in the meanwhile. So creeps were able to clean that up. They really need to be going towards the split pushes. Gats and Kin.killa have to be rotating out on their own. Because with the TP, with the Blink Dagger and the TP, Gats can blink in the trees and TP back home, and Kin.killa with a Remnant can ensure that he jumps out. Looks like he's still not going for a BKB, just decided to build damage. So he knows that if he builds BKB, he'll be too far behind. And when you're this far behind as it is, the only way you can come back is by building damage. So he has to instead play perfectly. So good recognition coming out from Kin.killa, but he has to be able to back it up by not being called out in these engagements. Since otherwise that ends the game for them. Since he's all their damage at this point, 80 to 90% of the damage is coming out from Kin.killa's Sleight of Fists. The rest of it's coming out from the Mass Serpent Ward. Since Razor's dying too quickly to be really effective, his static links aren't being all too effective as well. And without the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, and with how tanky the 3 cores after Weed Unit. The Eye of the Storm isn't really all too effective. Clockwork, he's able to provide the control with the hookshot, the cogs, as well as the battery assault. But against the 3 tanky cores, they could live through that, and then once it wears off, beat him down or blow him up. Very aggressive TP coming out from Method Man. Never mind, looks like it was DumbleD. He actually glimpses one back. Runs in for the static link. Over on 5200. 5200 now caught him to Static Storm as well as the kinetic field. And Mass Serpent wants doing a lot of damage over to him. However, he does have the Heart of Tarrasque. He's very tanky in the background. Sky catches out 1, catches out 2. DJ Ganja and the Brewlings running him down. UGTFO uses the hookshot to try and buy time for Kin.killa. Kin.killa throws at Slater Fist, doing a lot of work, but unfortunately not quite enough. DumbleD without the BKB, and the Ancient Seal eats the Mystic Flare to the face and takes a fall. And they weren't able to get a single kill off the back of that, so fall for nothing. Clockwork's forced to buy back, and looks like Weed Unit should be able to take game 1 fairly convincingly. Gonna be difficult for Horsemen and Ruckus. Try to recover. Kin.killa catches him out with the Slater Fist Searing Chain combination. 2 FI, has to be very careful. 1 Slater Fist could be enough to kill him. They're doing their best to try to hold them to high ground, but Weed Unit, they're not giving them an inch. With their 3 tanky cores, and with the way they've been playing, they'll be making sure that they don't give any window of opportunity for HOR to try to recover. Ember Spirit actually catches out Skywrath. So 2 fucking high. Underestimating the power of that Slater Fist. Yeah, that crit doing a lot of work. And this is the issue with the Ember Spirit. It's very difficult to try to reach high ground against him. So even though he had a very delayed start, because they lack any kind of dedicated push. And 5200 caught out in the cogs. He turns around, he stands his ground. He's going to be taking a fall, however. Great play coming out from UGTFO, catching out 5200. He eats the finger of death, unfortunately. His blade mail just won off as well. If that finger of death was... if he'd finger to death with the blade mail. Yeah.
Wow.
And the Ember Spirit wanted to go for a revenge kill.
Level 3 finger of death, it just hurts.
But unfortunately, he's out of remnants. The Horsemen and Ruckus, they're doing their best to hold. They've got a window now to be able to push, since without 5200, Weed Unit also lose a lot of their team fight. That being said, they do have the Primal Split and a Refresher Orb up on Brewmaster. Would really like to see a Sheepstick or a Shiva's Guard up in the Brewmaster now. Since the Refresher Orb means that he'll always have his ultimate up. And if the fight really gets long enough, if the entire Horsemen and Ruckus team lineup decide to buy back, he always has that advantage. And the Mass Serpent Ward's actually a huge amount. That's half the HP. The tier 3 Primal Split's being used. DumbleD pops the BKB as well as Static Link. He's going for a revenge kill on the Skywrath Mage. He's sick of eating that Mystic Flare to the face. But DJ Ganja is able to get a kill in the background over a Method Man. Kills the Shadow Shaman. Kin.killa cycling up in the air. Throws out the Slater Fist. Runs himself out to safety. They decide to completely ignore him and kill DumbleD instead. He eats another clap to the face. And Skywrath Mage says, "Where's your link at, bro?" Looks like a Soul Karas now up on Bristleback, so he's now fulfilling as well. Yeah, the tier 3 almost dead, so that's just off the base of 1 Mass Serpent Wards. So Weed Unit, if they ever get wiped, Horsemen and Ruckus do have that recovery potential. So that explains why they're playing it so safe, since they don't have a dedicated pusher. They do have the AC, which helps them push, so they've got that going for them. And with 3 heroes down, they could go for a bit of push chip damage, but UGTFO doing his thing with the cogs. He's been doing everything he can to try to delay Weed Unit from accomplishing their objective. Every single time he dies, he's able to buy back to try to defend high ground. He's been doing a lot of work. And Pastor J loses half his life to 1 Slater Fist combo. So the Ember Spirit, the big bad Ember Spirit, is getting a lot more dangerous. Kin.killa has been doing everything he can to try to keep his team in this fight. Him and UGTFO have really been able to delay these tier 3 pushes. And with the constant chip damage as well, when they back away like that, if UGTFO catches out one with the hookshot, as you saw over in 5200, they're able to immediately turn it into a kill. Roshan respawning in 3 minutes, so Weed Unit, if they're playing it safe, they might want to wait before they go in for another engagement. And the Pipe of Insight, usually you could use it to help delay to ensure that your creeps are able to get to high ground, so you can block out all the nukes. But the Slater Fist is physical damage, so it simply cuts through them all anyway. DJ Ganja goes in over on DumbleD with the clap as well as the Primal Split. Double clap coming out from him. Mass Serpent Ward's being dropped defensively. Gats eating the Mystic Flare. He takes a fall immediately. Sky punches him in the face with the AC. Method actually stands still for a second before he dies. UGTFO standing his ground, trying to do what he can to kill off the Brewlings. Actually kills off Panda's beyond godlike, so Razor gets a huge amount of gold. That Cyclone actually ensures that kill. With a Static Link over on 5200. 5200 going to be taking falls. Well, Horsemen and Ruckus are doing it. 5200 flee for his life. Great one-man impel coming out from Pastor J, ensuring that Kin.killa wasn't able to close the distance. DumbleD still being sent, but 225 damage up on him. Stolen from the Viper. He's able to get a kill that Slayer Fist. Sky locked in place to UGTFO. Man fighting it up, but without the BKB, they turn and fight this. Horsemen and Ruckus are doing it with a full-man wipe. And they're able to take the gem off the back of that as well. DJ Ganja runs in for retaliation kill over on DumbleD as well as UGTFO. It's Panda up against Flame Man. Throws out cheeky Slater Fist. Catches him out the Staring Chains. He actually could do a bit more damage. Since DJ Ganja hasn't hazed him yet. And Kin.killa, he knows this. Misses a few hits. Now he's got the haze. Now he has to back off. He can't man-fight this. Kin.killa, buddy, what are you doing? He throws at Slater Fist. Yeah, he's got the Remnant out, so he knows it. Yeah, he knows that he should be safe. But Gem and True Sight beyond Godlike Spree, and that's a Daedalus up on Ember Spirit. Ember Spirit is now starting to reach that point of no return, where he gets so farmed that you can't push up at all for fear of your entire team dying. He's built enough damage at this point that if he gets a crit on that Slater Fist, he can actually instantly kill the Skywrath Mage. They have to catch out the Ember Spirit with either a Hex or the Ancient Seal. There's absolutely nothing else that will be able to win them these fights. Method Man looks like he's going for a Pipe of Insight. Very strange game to be going for a Pipe, especially this late on. 4-star would have been a lot more effective, especially against Pandarean Brewmaster, since if you make him waste his clap, that's a lot of damage you're saving. Aghanim Scepter now up on UGTFO. Aghanim Scepter up for the Shadow Shaman as well, so he can start split pushing. He really needs to start split pushing. If he can take out that Tier 2 tower on his own, if the creep wave pushes out, if the enemy team barreling down mid, or at least force out a TP, in which case he could just blink out and TP back home as well. Skywrath Mage. Looks like he could be going for a Blade Mail of his own from the look of it. Armlet of Medigian up on Razor. DumbleD, please! He realizes that he just needs to stay alive in these fights. And the Armlet, while it's a very unconventional pickup on a hero like a Razor, it gives you 475 HP. And so Razor, all he wants to do right now is stay alive and draw as much fire as possible. If he gets a full duration link off like he did in that last fight over in the Viper, he can do a lot of work. 5-200 wasn't able to do a single thing once he was caught out in that full duration link. And DumbleD knows this, so he's just trying to stack as much HP as humanly possible to try to keep himself alive. Could have maybe gone towards something like a Heaven's Halberd or towards an Aghanim Scepter. A bit more conventional build coming out from the Razor, but DumbleD, he likes to go for these unconventional items. 5-man Smoke Gang. Looks like Ouija, they're actually baiting out the Roshan. They know Rosh is up, they know that they're probably going to be going for it. Smoke actually breaks, DumbleD called out. Pops to BKB and the Armlet of Medigian. Clap being used, Stagstorm unfortunately a bit too late. Massive Overlords captures that Sky. BKB's been completely wasted. DumbleD turning around, they're going to kill the Brewlings. Storm Panda's down as well as the Fire Panda. Glimpse is back too fucking high, he's going fleet for his life. UGTFO, going to be able to kill him on the back line. Eats the Viper Strike to the face. 5-200, fleet for his life. Hookshot unfortunately misses. Sky called out with the Shackles as well as Connect Field. Kin.killa gets a double kill. And Weed Unit is starting to fall apart off the back of these engagements. That Static Storm doing a huge amount of work in that.
This Ember Spirit is really big.
Yeah, Ember Spirit might have reached the point of critical mass. Method Man finally picks up a Hood of Defiance. Still no idea why he chose to go for that pipe. Literally any other item he could have built this game. Dagon would have been more effective this game. By the time he finishes the pipe, the magic damage block isn't really going to be that effective.
Yeah, this Panda have to go Hex, otherwise his Panda just dies.
Yeah, his Brewlings die immediately. That's the drawback of going for the Refresher Orb.
Yeah.
I mean, the Eye of the Storm is immediately cleaning up the Panda Brewlings. He needs a Hex in order to be able to...
He just needs Cyclone the Ember Spirit.
Yeah. If he has the Blink Dagger as well, because Brewmaster's so tanky, he can blink and Hex the Ember Spirit, and then he doesn't care if he eats all the stuns coming off from the enemy team, because he knows he'll be able to live through it, and then he can pop his ult and start the fight. And with the Refresh Orb as well, it gives you 2 Hexes if you absolutely have to. You can always refresh the Hex to ensure a kill over in Kin.killa. Because Kin.killa, he's too damn fat to ignore right now. You have to focus him, you have to silence him or snare him. Since that's Slater Fist doing a lot of work, and Viper, he's tapered off now. Viper and the Bristleback, they've really tapered off. They are doing a lot of damage if they're able to get it off, but, I mean, Sky in that last fight was called out in the Mass Open Wards. His entire BKB duration was wasted. BKB coming up from Kin.killa, so he's taking no chances. And so Weed Unit, the only way they could win a fight now is if they're able to catch out the Ember Spirit with a Blink Hex from the Panda, or if they kill the entire team before the Ember Spirit can really kill off the rest of their team. But with DumbleD building so tanky, with UGTFO being able to constantly provide the hook shots as well as the cogs.
If they wipe the team again.
Yeah, if Horsemen and Ruckus wipe them, that could be game. Oh god, looks like I actually disconnected. Bear with me. Looks like I have actually disconnected, so lag is hitting me as well. Hopefully, shouldn't be missing too much. And of course, as I lag out, I missed the entire engagement where it looked like we were wiped. That's a buyback. Wipe as well. What the hell, Orcon? Orcon, please.
Even just yeah, UGTFO just cogged support and then Kin.killa just killed him really fast, and the Panda just got killed real fast by the side of fist.
The refresher roll from Brewmaster really not doing as much work as we'd like. Just because they weren't able to breach high ground. Just off that, and a lot of this goes towards UGTFO. Every single time he dies, and they're pushing towards the tier 3s. He buys back, he uses the cog, he uses the hook shot, he buys as much time as possible for Kin.killa to do his thing.
There's no buyback.
Yeah, and that's game over. They can't recover from this.
Panda in line.
2 Rucks is down, going in favor for Horsemen and Ruckus. I mean, that being said, if Weed Unit are able to kill Horsemen and Ruckus and catch out Kin.killa without a buyback, they could at least take a set of racks of their own. But with the split pushing presence coming out from Shadow Shaman, it's very difficult for them to now recover. The one saving grace they have is a tier 2 is still up in the bot lane, so they at least didn't get negged. Since without their 3 cores, the 2 supports can't do anything. You usually have a hook shot towards creep to clear it out as quickly as possible. Pipe of Insight finally up on Disruptor for all the good it'll do this game. And DumbleD, his unconventional item build this game was questionable, but he was able to make it work. The armlet as well as the BKB combo gives him a lot of survivability in these fights. And Kin.killa carrying his team through. Second Battle Fury coming out from him. They didn't even take Rosh off the back of that, so they could look to go for Rosh now. BKB up on Brewmaster. This is a mistake. You never want to build a BKB on the Brewmaster unless if you absolutely must get the primal split off. But in this case, even if you get the split off, they're just going to kill your Brewlings immediately. So if you want to go for BKB, he had to get it half an hour ago. And that was if Method Man was on point with the Static Storms. But since he was able to get a lot of great splits off, BKB doesn't give him anything at all. He needed a sheep stick to be able to catch out Kin.killa. And that was an Aegis up on the DumbleD, as well as Cheese. Looks like Cheese is going to be picked up by Method Man. So the 5 position Disrupt staying alive for a second long. And the second Battle Fury up on the Ember Spirit. If they clump up and try to breach high ground and eat a Slate of Fist, that will pretty much kill the 2 supports immediately. Ember Spirit's one of the only heroes in the game where stacking Battle Furies actually gives you the most cost efficient form of DPS. Just because the way that it works is having 2 Battle Furies means that 70% of your damage is being cleaved out. And with every single one, because the cleave range is actually quite high, 250, so if we use the range creep as an example, about that is the cleave range. So every single hero for this entire wave, 5200 eating the Slate of Fist hit for himself, as well as all 4 creeps, melee creeps that are on him. So he eats a huge amount of damage, since the cleave damage is also based off the armor of the target that you're cleaving off. So when you're cleaving up against a creep wave, and the hero's caught in the middle of it, they're eating a huge amount of damage, because the creeps don't have as much armor as a hero. They've only got 2 armor apiece on them. And with the Desolator as well, you also got a negative armor coming out from that. So Kin.killa playing it very safe, dragging it to the ultra late game.
There you go.
Yeah, as a static, massive one trap over in the sky. Static Storm catches out Viper as well as the Bristle bag. Viper, his man dodges out of it, but caught out by UGTFO. Fighting him up in the Thunderdome with the Blade Mail being able to do a lot of work. They actually kill Ember Spirit. There's a huge comeback potential coming out from Weed Unit. DumbleD fleeing for his life. Since he was able to get full duration link off, he's got the Aegis the Immortal though. Eye of the Storm does persist through Aegis, so he's got that going through him. He is able to kill off the Brewmaster on the back end, just at the back with the one more right click from the Static Storm. 2 fucking high, eating a lot of damage. UGTFO does take a fall. Weed Unit are able to hold. 5200 copying a lot of damage, and DumbleD getting another static link duration off for 84 damage. Method Man fleeing for his life, past the J, blinks up, he doesn't have enough mana for a stun, so Method Man actually could turn around for a right click. That's what he does, he throws out the Thunder Strikes, that's gonna kill him. Support on support, DumbleD stands his ground. He might be able to kill 2 fucking high, but no, he's being snared up by the goo as well as the right clicks from 5200. And Weird Unit, they're able to wipe Horsemen and Ruckus, but while that happens, their tier 4s are eating a lot of damage. They're actually forced to blow a fortification for that. So Weird Unit...
Yeah, they can't push well.
They're down, but they're not out.
Very hard.
The gold lead, actually down to 5,000. They're only 5,000 gold lead for Weed Unit, which at this point is being spent on buybacks. They actually deny the tier 4 Sky! Huge misplay coming up from him. You never want to deny your tier 4s, kids. Okay. Don't try this at home. Even if you feed the gold away, you want the extra damage coming up from the tower to ensure that the creeps aren't able to beat on your ancient. Having 2 tier 4s, a Mystic Flare being whiffed by too fucking high.
Yeah.
Weed unit, questionable plays coming up from them. Assault Cuirass now up on the Razor. Vladimir's offering over in the Bristleback, so he's very tanky and able to do a lot of beefy damage, but he's been eating the Mass Serpent Wards every single time. So Gat's great recognition coming up from him. He knows that if you leave the Bristleback unhindered, he will kill every single support hero and turn around and start dealing a lot of damage to the carry. So if you catch him in place in the Mass Serpent Wards and prevent him from being able to do his thing, then all the items the Bristleback has are completely wasted. The Pipe of Insight at this point is completely negligible, since the majority of damage is physical. He does have all the auras, but because he's not he's not an immediate threat, and because he's not providing enough immediate utility for his team, if you just disable him and leave him alone, and kill the rest of his team, then turn around and kill him, the Bristleback isn't achieving anything at all. And so similar to a Wraith King, or the way you deal with similar to the way you deal with the Wraith King, the way you deal with the Viper, if you just ignore them and prevent them from being able to deal damage, then you have the advantage in these team fights because you can simply kite them around. Of course, it's a lot more difficult to kite a Viper, especially once he has that Aghanim Scepter upgrade. But on a hero like a Wraith King, Hookshot unfortunately whips over in Pastor J, so he flees. Looks like he's got a plate mail up on him. He eats Slayer Fist, Searing Chain combination. Kin.killa pops a BKB, he zips in with the Remnant. He's gone balls deep with this. He does have buyback, so if he does die, it's not the end of the world. Sky called out Mass Serpent Wards, unfortunately didn't catch. They're able to kill Kin.killa. DumbleD's using the BKB, but his BKB just wore off. Mass Serpent Wards doing so much work. Sky dies just to the Mass Serpent Wards. 5-200, catches up DumbleD. He's got a linked off though, so he's got a lot of damage up on him. Turn around, trying to kill the Broodlings, but he's going to be taking a fall as well. Weed unit, they're able to punish the over-aggression coming out from Horsemen and Ruckus. And that gives them a window to try to take these fights. UGTFO, call it an Ancient Seal, eats one more right click. Turns around for the hook shot, but dies. Method Man, he's just likes to TP back home. Can't turn into a frog. Gats as well. Gets critted down by the Fire Broodling. Also, he eats a Finger of Death as well.
He's getting ripped.
Yeah, Pastor J. Every single time he's been throwing out these questionable Fingers of Death. Should be saving them for the core heroes, but a kill is a kill, so can't necessarily complain. Brewmaster did use a refresher room for that, but the tier 4 is almost gone. So Horsemen and Ruckus, they know that with buyback over in the Ember Spirit, it's going to be very difficult for the lineup of Weed unit to be able to break high ground. Just because they don't have any dedicated pushes, that's something that really boils down to just the drafting stage. So Shadow Shaman was able to do a lot of work in these fights.
Yeah, he used the refresher orb in that fight.
Yeah. So Brewmaster doesn't have his primal split up as well. I mean, at this point, Kin.killa will be up before they're able to hit high ground. And while Viper's very tanky, he just doesn't do enough damage to kill the tower quickly. And without the AC, all of Vladimir's aura, it's going to be difficult. They have got Fortification up as well. So tier 4s are down, it's just a naked Ancient. And to Horsemen and Ruckus, they could simply decide to go for a Hail Mary. Buy Boots of Travels up on their core heroes, BOT into the creep wave and just smack on the Ancients. Looks like they will be maybe losing a set of racks for this. Kin.killa and Gats looking to defend. Slayer Fist, Searing Chain combination, DJ Ganja turns into a chicken, Yulesed up, so Gats can land that Mass Serpent Ward trap, BKB back home. Mass Serpent Ward being used very defensively, that was a waste of a Mass Serpent Ward. Unfortunately, wasn't able to accomplish anything with that. Pastor J fleeing for his life, UGTFO's on the hunt, unfortunately, hook shots into the creep wave. So rare misplay coming up from UGTFO, and Pastor J still fleeing, a lot of pings coming up from Method Man. He's like, what the fuck are you up to, mate? But he's got coming off cooldown in one more second, he can actually choose to land, he still has a flare as well. But Pastor J now looks like he's being merciful, and Method Man still picking out his teammate. Great team synergy coming out from the boys of Horsemen and Ruckus. They've played with each other for a long time now. So they're not above having a bit of fun. Disruptor now finally deciding to go for an Aghanim Scepter, item that would have done a lot of work instead of the Pipe of Insight. So too little too late, but at least he's trying. Assault Cuirass up on Razor, so he's going for a pure late game build, choosing not to go for the Aghanim Scepter, not to go for the Refresher Orb. So he just wants to be as tanky as possible and provide that aura, since Assault Cuirass is one of those items where it's the Red Queen's hypothesis. If the enemy team builds one, you have to build one as well to counteract it, since otherwise you're playing from a disadvantage, especially since they have Vladimir's aura as well. So if Razor didn't go for the Vladimir's offering, or if he didn't go for the Assault Cuirass, Bristleback and with the Vladimir's and the Assault Cuirass is providing plus 10 armor to every member of his team, and he's providing -5 for every member of Horsemen and Ruckus. So they're operating from a -15 armor deficit. But with the Assault Cuirass, he's at least leaving it down to 10, since it cancels out the Assault Cuirass. DJ Gandra pops his BKB. Kin.killa does as well. Kin.killa still playing very far forward. He's got to be incredibly careful. Ever since he's gotten his BKB, he's been playing a bit too far YOLO. Sent for a Slay Fist, but dies. He does have buyback, so he has that going for him. But while that time, DumbleD either stall up on him, eats the boulder toss to the face, doing a lot of work in the background, trying to just absorb as much fire as possible to give his teammates. But Gats, Red Dota coming out, no fortification! Your house is on fire, fortification has now been used, Pastor J, fingers him immediately, Earthspike coming out, and unfortunately gets used up. Gats doing what he can to try to keep the boys from Weed Unit on their toes. Kin.killa has been playing way too far forward ever since he's pulled his BKB, and he's been punished for that. While you are immune to snares, you still have 9 armor, so they just get smacking you around. But fortification is down. They could keep doing this, Horsemen and the Ruckus, if they really want to, since without the Aegis up, without the fortification up, and without Roshan, they could choose to go for another YOLO push, but Viper, he picks up Boots of Travels, he's sick of the split push. If they're able to wipe out Horsemen and Ruckus like that again, force out the buyback and then kill Ember Spirit, they could actually end the game. So they're going to force out the buyback at least from Ember Spirit if they decide to group up as 5 and push down mid. But UGTFO, he's going to do his best to delay once again, using the cogs. And because they're pushing down mid, top lane's still pushing out. In the bottom lane, which is the only lane where there aren't super creeps, UGTFO used the cogs, push back Sky. Sky's items haven't progressed at all. So at this point, looks like he's just saving for a buyback. DJ Gandhi leading the charge. He's got Blink hacks over UGTFO for 4 seconds, eats the clap as well. Finger of Death is off cooldown for Pastor J. Hasn't used it yet, he's very late on his Finger of Death. Uses it on Gats. Mystic Flare cleans up the Clockwork. Ember Spirit is up now, but this could be game over. Weed Unit punishing the over-aggression coming up from Horsemen and Ruckus. They're going for the throne. Stack Storm being used. Slay the Fist doing so much work. BK being popped. Glimpses back past the J, and they're actually going for it. They don't have fortification up. Weed Unit, they've got completely sick of the split push coming out from the boys of Horsemen and Ruckus. DumbleD caught in the front lines, eating a lot of damage. And the crit cleans him up. He's forced to buyback to stay, keep himself alive. Kin.killa caught up the Ancient Seal. They can choose to go on him right now. Throws out the boulder toss. He's got buyback if he absolutely needs it. So they're able to hold on to their Ancients. And Weed, this is a Game of Thrones coming up from both teams, completely ignoring the other sets of racks. Just going in for the throne. Skywrath Mage BOTing back in. But the crits are on fire. DumbleD runs forward, catches the static link over in 5-200. Buybacks coming up from both teams. That Kin.killa crit cleans up Panda. Panda buys back. He's eating the Mystic Flare. He dies. He has to immediately buy back. Does he not have buyback? And this could be game. No, never mind. He's got buyback, so he can zip right back in. Pastor J, Blitz fall over and Method Man support v support. He's a Slater Fist Staring Chain combination. 3 remnants up. Finger of Death. The dodge, keeping himself alive for as long as possible. DJ Kanji, BKB starts smacking on their racks. Slater Fist Staring Chain combination. Gonna kill Pastor J. DJ Kanji trying to go for a Hail Mary YOLO push. But he's going to be taking falls. Kin.killa, Rizza gives it to Kin.killa, cuts him down. His Wu-Tang style is too much to handle. Sky pops the BKB and the Blade Mail. Yule stepped her up. Mass Summon Wars being used defensively. UGTFO is alive with the Shiva's guy. Winter is coming for you, my friend. Turn into a chicken. Kai, this game comes up from 5-200. Slater Fist Staring Chain combination unfortunately doesn't land. Pull out the Shackle. Glimpse being used as well. Not LGD enough. The throws coming out from both teams. Sky finally takes a fall and looks like Method Man gets it. So Jamie, he finally gets a kill, and in the top lane, and in the enemy base. Catapults, you gotta kill those catapults, buddy. Skywrath Mage can't do anything to those catapults. Shadow Shaman buys back, he's got BOTs up.
This should just TP. Oh, there you go.
There we go, Kin.killa BOTs in. Gats doesn't have a BOTs, but he's able to defend. Pops the BKB, he's gonna kill 205. Catches him with the Staring Chains, and with one more right click, his Wu-Tang style cuts down Skywrath Mage, and 69 minutes in, Horsemen and the Ruckus are finally able to bring down Weed Unit in game number 1. We're just going to take a quick break, I'm going to grab some water, and we'll load into game number 2. So stay tuned, we'll be right back.